Legends are made here, and I know.
Yeah, bro! We're here! Yeah, bro, because we're finally... Hey. Hey!
We have a big act right here, right now.
I am so getting a raise for this.
Grab a mic and a hat. Follow me if you can.
And nothing's gonna throw me off my game, not even you.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
There are some movie franchises that feel like more than just movies. They become part of a certain generation's childhood, and years later, even hearing the name is enough to bring back memories. That is exactly what happens with Camp Rock. The original movie arrived back in 2008 and quickly became one of Disney Channel's most recognizable musical films, introducing audiences to Mitchie Torres, Shane Gray, and the fictional band Connect 3. Now, after more than a decade, Disney has finally brought the story back with Camp Rock 3, a movie that tries to balance nostalgia with a completely new generation of characters. And this time, the camp is not simply about spending a summer with friends. There is a much bigger opportunity waiting for the campers. Because Connect 3 has returned and they are searching for someone new to open for their upcoming reunion tour. The biggest attraction, of course, is the return of Joe, Nick, and Kevin Jonas as Shane, Nate, and Jason. The three members of Connect 3. Their return gives the movie an immediate connection to the first two films. But Camp Rock 3 is not simply trying to recreate what worked in 2008. The story introduces a completely new group of young performers who are ready to prove that they belong on a much bigger stage. Among them is Sage, played by Liamani Segura, and Fletch, played by Malachi Barton. The new cast also includes Lumi Pollock as Rosie, Hudson Stone as Desi, Casey Trotter as Cliff, and several other young performers who bring their own personalities and musical styles into the camp. Maria Canals-Barrera also returns as Connie Torres, bringing another important connection to Mitchie and the original Camp Rock story. The basic idea behind the new movie is actually pretty simple, but it gives the filmmakers plenty of room for music, competition, friendship, and drama. Connect 3 is preparing for a major reunion tour, but there is a problem. Their opening act is no longer available, leaving the brothers with an unexpected gap in their tour plans. Instead of searching for an established performer, they decide to return to the place where so much of their own story began, Camp Rock. Their mission is to find the next big talent among the campers. Suddenly, what should have been an ordinary summer camp becomes a competition where everyone has something to prove. For the campers, this opportunity is almost impossible to ignore. Performing as the opening act for Connect 3 could completely change their lives. It could give one of them the chance to perform in front of huge audiences, gain confidence, and finally show the world what they can do. But whenever a group of talented young people is competing for one major opportunity, things are never going to stay peaceful for long. Friendships are tested, rivalries begin, and personal feelings start getting mixed with the competition. Instead of simply asking who has the best voice, the story becomes more about who can stay true to themselves when everyone around them is trying to stand out. That is where Sage becomes especially important. She represents the new generation of Camp Rock, and her journey is about more than winning a competition. She is ambitious and determined, but she also has a strong sense of community. Her character gives the movie an emotional center because she has to figure out what success actually means to her. Is success simply standing on a huge stage beside Connect 3, or is it about discovering her own voice and becoming confident enough to share it? That question gives the musical competition more meaning than simply deciding who gets the biggest performance. Fletch becomes another major part of the story, and his connection with Sage adds another layer to the competition. Instead of making every relationship purely competitive, the movie allows friendships and romance to develop alongside the musical performances. That creates situations where the characters have to decide whether they should protect their own chances of winning or support the people they care about. It is a familiar Disney formula, but it fits the Camp Rock world because the original movies were always about balancing personal ambition with friendship and family. And then there is the nostalgia factor. For longtime fans, the return of Connect 3 is probably the biggest reason to watch this movie. Joe, Nick, and Kevin are no longer playing exactly the same young musicians audiences remember from the original films. They are returning as older versions of those characters, and that difference is actually part of the appeal. The movie understands that the audience has grown up too. Instead of pretending that nothing has changed, it uses that passage of time as part of the story. The brothers return to the camp as established musicians, while the younger campers look at them as the stars they once dreamed of becoming. One of the most interesting surprises surrounding Camp Rock 3 is the return of Demi Lovato as Mitchie Torres. Her involvement had initially been associated with the production side of the movie, but the finished film brings Mitchie back in a limited but meaningful appearance. Her presence connects the original camp rock generation directly with the new campers. Rather than taking over the entire story, Mitchie appears at an important point and helps reinforce the idea that the franchise is passing its legacy from one generation to another. That decision makes sense because trying to build the entire movie around the old characters could have made the new cast feel unnecessary. Instead, Camp Rock 3 uses the original stars as a bridge. The Jonas Brothers are central to the story, Mitchie provides another emotional connection, and the new campers are given the opportunity to carry the franchise forward. It is basically Disney saying that the Camp Rock story does not have to end with the characters we already know. There is room for a new generation to create its own memories. The movie also puts a lot of attention on music, which should not be surprising considering what Camp Rock represents. Musical performances are not simply there to fill time between scenes. They are used to show confidence, personality, rivalry, and growth. The new soundtrack introduces fresh songs while also giving longtime fans the kind of familiar musical energy they expect from the franchise. One of the songs released ahead of the movie was One Beat Away, performed by Liamani Segura and the cast, giving audiences an early idea of the musical direction of the new film. What makes the whole project more interesting is how much time has passed since the last Camp Rock movie. Camp Rock 2, the final jam, came out in 2010, meaning fans have waited around 16 years for this continuation. That is a huge gap for a Disney Channel franchise, and it explains why the movie is clearly designed to work on two levels. Younger viewers can discover Camp Rock for the first time through the new characters, while older viewers can enjoy seeing the Jonas Brothers and familiar faces return to a place they remember from their childhood. The film was directed by Veronica Rodriguez and written by Eddie Fay, with the Jonas Brothers and Demi Lovato also involved as executive producers. The production was completed before the movie arrived in 2026, and Disney eventually confirmed its release schedule. Camp Rock 3 premiered on Disney Channel on August 13, 2026, before becoming available on Disney Plus on August 14. So unlike the years when fans had to wait for a television premiere or a later home release, the new generation can now discover the entire movie through Disney's streaming platform as well. The promotional campaign also leaned heavily into nostalgia. The first teaser brought back the Jonas Brothers and immediately reminded viewers that Connect 3 was returning to Camp Rock. The teaser focused on memories, music, and the feeling of coming back to a place that still matters years later. Later promotional material gave audiences a better look at the new campers, their competition, and the overall story. Disney also highlighted the new music and characters, making it clear that this was intended to be more than a simple reunion project. And that is probably the most important thing about Camp Rock 3. It is not really trying to convince viewers that nothing has changed. Everything has changed. The original fans have grown older, the Jonas Brothers have grown older, and a completely new group of young performers has taken the stage. The movie uses that change as its central idea. The camp is still there, the music is still there, and the dream of performing in front of an audience is still there. But now somebody else has to take the next step. For Sage, Fletch, Rosie, Desi, Cliff, and the rest of the new campers, Camp Rock is their opportunity to create the memories that the original characters once created. They have their own rivalries, their own friendships, and their own reasons for wanting to succeed. And while the competition may be about becoming the opening act for Connect 3, the bigger challenge is learning how to succeed without losing the people and values that made the journey worthwhile. That is why the return of Camp Rock feels different from simply bringing back an old Disney movie. It is a handoff. The Jonas Brothers represent the generation that made Camp Rock famous, while the new cast represents the generation that Disney hopes will make the franchise relevant again. Whether every longtime fan will connect with the new characters in exactly the same way is another question, but the intention is clear. Camp Rock is no longer just Mitchie's story. It belongs to a new group of campers now. And with the movie finally released, the biggest question is no longer whether Camp Rock 3 is actually happening. That question has already been answered. The real question is whether this new generation can make Camp Rock feel special again. What makes the new Camp Rock story work is that the competition is never only about the final performance. For these campers, every rehearsal becomes a test of confidence. Every friendship can change the way they perform, and every mistake can make them question whether they really belong on the stage. That is what gives the movie its emotional side. These are young performers who are suddenly being asked to compete for an opportunity that could completely change their future. And naturally, not everyone handles that pressure in the same way. Sage is at the center of that pressure. She wants to succeed, but she also wants to remain connected to the people around her. That creates an interesting conflict because the closer the campers get to the final opportunity, the harder it becomes to separate friendship from competition. Someone else's success can suddenly feel like your failure, and that is where misunderstandings begin. The movie uses those situations to explore an idea that is familiar but still important. You can want something badly without wanting someone else to lose. Fletch brings a different energy into the story. His relationship with Sage gives the film some of its lighter and more personal moments, but it also creates another complication. When two people are chasing the same dream, feelings can make everything more complicated. There are moments when supporting someone you care about means putting your own ambitions aside, and there are other moments when the best thing you can do is push that person to believe in themselves. Their relationship gives the competition a more personal side and helps make the new characters feel like more than just contestants. Meanwhile, the other campers each add something different to the group. Rosie, Desi, Cliff, Callie, Madison, and the rest of the new faces help make Camp Rock feel busy and alive again. They have different personalities and different approaches to music, which means the performances do not all feel like variations of the same character. Some want attention, some want friendship, some simply want the chance to prove that they have talent, and others are still figuring out what they actually want from the experience. That variety is important because Camp Rock has always been about finding your place. In the original movie, Mitchie was trying to find the confidence to reveal who she really was. In the new movie, the characters face a similar challenge, but in a completely different world. Social media, modern music culture, and the pressure of being noticed have changed the way young performers think about success. The movie does not turn into a heavy drama about those subjects, but it understands that being talented is not always enough anymore. You also have to know who you are. The return of Connie Torres gives the story another connection to the past. Maria Canals Barrera once again plays Connie, who is now connected to Camp Rock in a different way. Seeing her back alongside the new campers reinforces the idea that the camp has continued to grow even while the original characters moved forward with their lives. For longtime fans, even these smaller connections can make the movie feel like a genuine continuation rather than a completely unrelated project using the Camp Rock name. Then there is Connect 3. Joe, Nick, and Kevin Jonas return to their familiar roles, and their presence naturally creates some of the biggest nostalgic moments in the film. Their characters are now experienced performers rather than the young musicians audiences met years ago. That gives their relationship with the campers a different dynamic. They are no longer simply the cool stars everyone wants to meet. They are now the people deciding who deserves a chance to perform beside them. That creates an interesting reversal. In the original movies, Shane, Nate, and Jason were the stars the campers looked up to. Now they are looking at a younger generation and trying to figure out who has the potential to become the next big thing. In a way, the story mirrors what happened in real life. The Jonas Brothers themselves went from young Disney stars to established musicians, and now they are returning to the franchise with the perspective of adults who have already experienced the entertainment industry. The movie also benefits from the fact that the Jonas Brothers are not simply appearing for a quick nostalgia cameo. They are deeply connected to the project as executive producers, alongside Demi Lovato. That involvement helps explain why the story is built around the idea of legacy. They are not just revisiting an old role. They are helping introduce a new generation to the world that played such a major role in their early careers. And then comes one of the biggest surprises for fans, Mitchie Torres herself. Demi Lovato's appearance was kept relatively quiet during the promotional period, which made her return much more meaningful when audiences finally saw her. Mitchie does not simply return to take over the movie. Instead, her appearance is designed to connect her journey with the journeys of the new campers. She becomes a reminder of how far the Camp Rock story has come and how much can happen between one generation and the next. Her return also gives the movie an emotional moment that longtime viewers were probably hoping for. Mitchie is no longer the nervous teenager trying to find her voice. She is someone who has already lived through the challenges the new campers are facing. That allows her to offer encouragement from a place of experience. In a franchise built around music and self-expression, that makes her return feel meaningful rather than forced. The music remains one of the movie's biggest selling points, Camp Rock was never a franchise where the songs were just background decoration. The performances are part of the storytelling. When a character performs, we learn something about that person. When two characters perform together, we understand their relationship differently. And when the entire group comes together, the music becomes a symbol of the community they have built. The new soundtrack follows that tradition while giving the younger cast their own musical identity. Songs such as One Beat Away help establish the new sound of Camp Rock while keeping the energetic Disney musical style that fans expect. The soundtrack was also promoted before the movie's release, giving fans an opportunity to hear the new generation before seeing the full story. Another thing worth noticing is how the movie uses the camp itself. Camp Rock is almost a character in its own right. It represents freedom, creativity, friendship, and the chance to escape everyday life for a summer. Returning to that environment allows the movie to recreate some of the atmosphere that made the first two films memorable, without simply repeating their stories. The trailers also made it clear that nostalgia would be a major part of the experience. The first teaser brought back Connect 3 and emphasized their return to the place where their journey began. Later footage introduced the new campers and showed the competition for the opening act position, instead of revealing every major moment. The promotional material focused on the idea of returning to Camp Rock and discovering who could become the next big performer. The release itself became another major moment for the franchise. Camp Rock 3 premiered on Disney Channel on August 13, 2026, and arrived on Disney Plus on August 14. That release strategy allowed Disney to reach both longtime television viewers and the streaming generation at the same time. For fans who grew up watching Disney Channel, the television premiere carries a nostalgic feeling, while younger audiences can simply open Disney Plus and discover the franchise from the third movie, of course. One of the biggest challenges for any legacy sequel is proving that it has a reason to exist. Camp Rock 3 cannot simply rely on the Jonas Brothers walking back onto the screen and expecting nostalgia to do all the work. The new characters have to matter, the new songs have to matter, and the story has to give viewers something beyond memories of the original films. That is why the passing of the torch idea is so important. Mitchie and Connect 3 represent the past, while Sage, Fletch, Rosie, Desi, Cliff, and the other campers represent the future. The movie does not ask audiences to forget the old characters. Instead, it asks them to watch what happens when their legacy inspires someone new. And that may be the most emotional idea hidden underneath all the music and competition. Everyone wants to be remembered, but the real sign that you made an impact is when somebody else becomes confident enough to follow the path you helped create. Mitchie once had to find her own voice, and now she gets to watch another young performer face the same challenge. Connect 3 once stood on a stage as young musicians hoping to prove themselves, and now they are giving someone else the chance to stand beside them. That makes Camp Rock 3 more than a simple reunion. It is a story about growing up without forgetting where you came from. It is about realizing that success changes as you get older. And sometimes the greatest achievement is helping someone else reach the place where you once wanted to be. For longtime fans, there is plenty here to enjoy. The familiar faces are back, the music is still at the heart of the story, and the movie contains enough callbacks to remind viewers why the original franchise became so popular. For new viewers, the story is accessible enough to introduce a completely different group of characters without requiring them to know every detail of the first two movies. By the time the competition reaches this stage, the campers are no longer treating the opportunity like a simple summer activity. The possibility of performing alongside Connect 3 has changed the atmosphere at Camp Rock completely. Everyone knows that one performance could put them in front of a massive audience, and that pressure starts revealing sides of the campers that were not obvious when they first arrived. Some become more confident, some become more competitive, and others begin wondering whether chasing the spotlight is actually worth losing the friendships they came here to make. Sage is especially caught between those two worlds. She has always wanted to prove that she belongs, but the closer she gets to achieving that goal, the more complicated everything becomes. There is a difference between wanting to be successful and becoming obsessed with winning, and Sage starts to understand that difference through the people around her. The competition forces her to look beyond the stage and think about what kind of person she wants to be when the performance is over. Fletch, meanwhile, has his own way of dealing with the pressure. He does not always show what he is feeling, and that can make him seem more confident than he actually is. His connection with Sage becomes harder to ignore as the competition continues, especially because both of them are trying to figure out where they stand. There is a natural chemistry between them, but the timing is far from perfect. When two people are chasing the same opportunity, even the smallest misunderstanding can become a much bigger problem. That is one of the things the movie handles well. The relationships do not suddenly become perfect just because the characters are talented. They still misunderstand each other, make emotional decisions, and sometimes let their ambitions get in the way. The story keeps these conflicts relatively light, but they give the musical performances more meaning. When the campers finally step onto the stage, we understand that they are not just performing a song. They are carrying everything that has happened between them into that performance. Rosie has another kind of journey. She is talented, but confidence does not come naturally to her. Her cello gives her a way to express herself, yet performing in front of people is completely different from practicing alone. That makes her development one of the quieter but more satisfying parts of the story. She does not suddenly transform into someone completely different. Instead, she gradually becomes comfortable with the idea that she does not have to change her personality to deserve attention. Cliff brings a different energy to the group, particularly through his connection with rhythm and performance. Callie is equally determined to make an impression, while Madison approaches the competition from a much more intimidating position. Each camper has a different idea of what being a performer means, and that creates the variety that keeps the group from feeling like one large character with different names. The interesting part is that Connect 3 are watching all of this happen. Shane, Nate, and Jason have been in the entertainment business long enough to recognize that raw talent is only one part of becoming a successful performer. They have seen people who could sing brilliantly but could not handle pressure, and they have seen performers with less obvious talent become unforgettable because they knew how to connect with an audience. That experience changes the way they judge the campers. The question is not simply who can sing the best. Instead, it becomes who is ready for what comes next. Opening for Connect 3 means stepping onto a much bigger stage, dealing with a much larger audience, and accepting that mistakes will be seen by thousands of people. The campers may think they are competing for a performance slot, but Connect 3 are really looking for someone who can handle the responsibility that comes with it. This also gives Shane an opportunity to show how much he has changed since the original Camp Rock movies. The younger version of Shane was confident, sometimes arrogant, and not always good at understanding what other people were feeling. Years later, he has a different perspective. He knows what it means to be judged, to fail, and to grow up in front of an audience. Watching him interact with the new campers makes it clear that the character has matured. The same is true for Nate and Jason. Their presence is not only there for nostalgia. They help establish the connection between the old Camp Rock and the new one. They remember what it was like to be young musicians with huge ambitions. And now they are watching another group experience the same excitement and uncertainty. Then comes the question that has been hanging over the entire competition: who is actually going to get the opportunity? At this point, the campers have already learned that being the most talented person in the room does not automatically make you the right choice. The strongest performance can still fail if the performer is disconnected from the people around them. A technically perfect routine can feel empty if there is no emotion behind it. And sometimes the performance that seems less polished can become the one everyone remembers because the person on stage is completely genuine. That idea becomes increasingly important as the final performances approach. The campers stop trying to copy what they think Connect 3 wants to see and begin focusing on what makes each of them different. Rosie embraces her instrument instead of hiding behind it. Cliff trusts his rhythm. Callie brings her choreography to the front. Sage begins to understand that leadership does not mean controlling everyone around her. And Fletch starts letting people see the person underneath the confident exterior. The competition therefore becomes less about eliminating one another and more about discovering who they are. That is a familiar Camp Rock message, but it still fits because the entire franchise has always been built around self-expression. And this is where the presence of Mitchie carries an unexpected emotional weight. Her return is brief, but it connects the new campers to the story that started everything. Mitchie once stood in a similar position, unsure whether her real voice was good enough to be heard. Now she can look at a completely new group of performers and recognize that same uncertainty in them. Her appearance does not need to dominate the movie to have an impact. In fact, keeping it limited allows the new characters to remain at the center. Mitchie is there almost like a reminder of what Camp Rock represents. The camp has changed, the people have changed, and the music has changed, but the reason people come there remains the same. They want to belong. They want someone to believe in them. And more than anything, they want the courage to stand on a stage and be themselves. That is what makes the final stretch of the story more meaningful than a simple talent competition. By now, the campers understand that winning can open a door, but it cannot decide who they become once that door opens. The real challenge begins after the applause. And as the final performance gets closer, everyone at Camp Rock has to face one last question. If they get the chance they have been dreaming about, will they be ready to step into it without losing themselves along the way? The question hanging over the campers becomes impossible to ignore as the final stage of the competition gets closer. Everyone has spent so much time thinking about the opportunity that it is easy to forget what happens after they get it. Performing with Connect 3 sounds like the perfect ending to their summer, but the closer they get to the final decision, the more nervous some of them become. Suddenly, the dream feels real, and real dreams are often much more frightening than imaginary ones. Sage feels that pressure more than anyone. She has spent the entire competition trying to prove that she deserves a place on the stage, but now she has to prove something much more difficult, that she can handle the attention without allowing it to change her. The other campers have noticed her growth, but Sage still has doubts about herself. She knows how badly she wants the opportunity, and that desire sometimes makes her question whether she is making the right decisions. Her relationship with Fletch adds another layer to that uncertainty. The two of them have grown closer, but the competition has made their feelings harder to understand. There are moments when they seem completely comfortable together, followed by moments when one small misunderstanding creates distance between them. Neither of them wants to admit how much the other person matters, especially when they are both trying to focus on the same goal. Fletch eventually realizes that being confident does not mean pretending that nothing affects you. He has spent much of the story acting like he can handle everything, but the pressure of the competition begins to expose his insecurities. He wants to succeed, but he also does not want Sage to think that his ambition matters more than their relationship. Finding the balance becomes one of his biggest challenges. Meanwhile, the other campers begin preparing for their final opportunity in completely different ways. Some rehearse until they can perform every movement without thinking. Others focus on their vocals or instruments. A few simply spend time with their friends because they know that once the competition ends, this version of Camp Rock will never exist in exactly the same way again. That realization changes the mood around the camp. For the first time, the campers begin looking beyond the competition and noticing how much they have experienced together. They arrived as individuals, many of them unsure of where they fit in. Now they have shared rehearsals, arguments, jokes, disappointments, and performances. Even the people they once considered rivals have become part of their summer memories. That is when the competition starts feeling less like a battle and more like a celebration. Of course, there is still something at stake. Connect 3 need an opening act, and they cannot simply choose everyone. Someone will receive the opportunity, while the others will have to return home knowing that they came close. For young performers, that can be a difficult reality to accept. Shane understands that better than most. His own journey taught him that success does not happen in one perfect moment. There are setbacks, bad performances, criticism, and periods when it seems like everything is going in the wrong direction. He tries to make the campers understand that one decision will not determine the rest of their lives. Getting chosen would be amazing, but not getting chosen does not mean they failed. That advice becomes especially important for the campers, who have allowed the competition to define their confidence. The final rehearsals also reveal how much the group has changed musically. Early performances were often about showing individual talent. Now the campers understand how to perform as a group. They listen to one another instead of trying to overpower each other. They know when to step forward and when to let someone else take the spotlight. That change is important because a professional stage is not built around one person doing everything. Connect 3 know that better than anyone. Their success has always depended on the chemistry between 3 different personalities. The campers begin discovering that the same principle applies to them. Sage eventually recognizes that leadership is not about having every answer. Sometimes it means trusting other people enough to let them contribute. That realization helps her repair some of the tension that developed during the competition. Instead of trying to control the outcome, she begins focusing on making the final performance something everyone can be proud of. Fletch notices the difference immediately. For the first time, he sees Sage enjoying the process instead of constantly worrying about whether she is winning. That makes their connection stronger because neither of them has to pretend anymore. They can support each other without turning every conversation into another discussion about the competition. Rosie also reaches an important turning point. She realizes that she has been judging herself against performers who have completely different strengths. She does not need to become louder or more dramatic. Her strength is the emotion she brings through her music, and once she accepts that, her performance becomes much more confident. Cliff has a similar realization. Instead of worrying about whether his style fits the expectations of the people judging them, he decides to trust his instincts. His rhythm becomes part of the group's identity rather than something he feels he needs to hide. These changes may seem small, but together they completely altered the atmosphere of the final performance. And then the night everyone has been waiting for finally arrives. The stage is ready. The lights are brighter than anything the campers have experienced before, and the crowd is larger than they imagined. For a few seconds, nobody speaks. All the rehearsals, arguments, friendships, and doubts have led to this exact moment. The campers look at one another, and suddenly the competition does not seem quite as important. They are not thinking about who will win. They are thinking about the fact that they made it here together. When the music begins, everything changes. The first performance is energetic, but it is not perfect. There are small moments where the campers have to recover from mistakes, but instead of panicking, they keep going. That actually makes the performance feel more authentic. They are not machines delivering a flawless routine. They are young performers reacting to the moment and trusting one another. Connect 3 watch from the side of the stage. Shane smiles because he recognizes something familiar in the performance. Nate and Jason exchange a look, realizing that the campers have finally stopped trying to impress them and started performing for the audience. That is exactly what they were looking for. As the performance continues, each camper gets a moment to stand out without taking attention away from everyone else. Sage leads when she needs to, but she also steps back when another performer deserves the spotlight. Fletch brings his own energy into the routine. Rosie adds an emotional musical moment that changes the mood completely. While Cliff and the others keep the performance moving, the audience responds immediately. For the campers, the applause feels different from anything they have experienced before. They are not performing inside a rehearsal room anymore. They are standing in front of people who came to watch them, and for the first time, they realize that they do not need permission to call themselves performers. They already are. When the song ends, there is a moment of silence before the audience erupts. The campers look at each other, almost unable to believe what just happened, but the competition is not finished yet. Connect 3 still have to make their decision. And that decision could determine which camper gets the opportunity to step onto an even bigger stage. Sage knows she has done everything she can. Fletch knows the same. The others feel it too. Whatever happens next, none of them can go back to the people they were when they first arrived at Camp Rock. They came looking for an opportunity. Instead, they found something much bigger. They found confidence, they found friendship, and most importantly, they found their own voices. Now all that remains is to discover who Connect 3 believe is ready to take the next step. The moment after the final performance feels strangely quiet. Only a few seconds have passed, but for the campers, it feels much longer. They have spent the entire summer working toward this opportunity, and now there is nothing left for them to control. The music has stopped, the audience has seen what they can do, and the decision is completely in the hands of Connect 3. Sage tries to stay calm, but it is obvious that she is nervous. She looks around at the other campers and realizes that everyone is feeling the same thing. Some are excited, others are worried, and a few are simply trying to enjoy the last few moments before they find out what happens next. Fletch walks over to Sage, and for once, neither of them talks about winning. They simply acknowledge how far they have come. Whatever happens with the final decision, they know they have changed during their time at Camp Rock. The competition may have brought them together, but the experiences outside the stage are what made their friendship meaningful. That is something the campers did not understand when they first arrived. At the beginning, everyone was focused on being noticed. They wanted to make the strongest impression, get the best performance, and prove that they were better than the other contestants. But after spending weeks together, they discovered that the people standing beside them were not obstacles. They were part of the reason the performances became better. That realization also affects the way the final decision is handled. When Connect 3 finally gather the campers together, the atmosphere becomes serious. Everyone expects them to announce one winner immediately, but instead, Shane explains what they were actually looking for throughout the competition. Talent mattered, but it was never the only thing. They wanted someone who could perform under pressure, someone who could work with other musicians, someone who could connect with an audience, and most importantly, Someone who understood that being a performer is not about standing above everyone else. It is about knowing when to share the stage. Those words make several of the campers think back to their earlier mistakes. There were moments when they tried too hard to stand out, moments when they allowed jealousy to affect their friendships, and moments when they believed that another person's success somehow reduced their own chances. Now they understand things differently. Sage listens carefully, because she knows that much of what Shane is saying applies directly to her. She had spent so much time worrying about becoming the best that she sometimes forgot why she started performing in the first place. She loved music because it gave her a way to express things she could not always explain with words. That realization gives her a strange sense of peace. For the first time, she is genuinely prepared for either outcome. If she gets chosen, she will be ready. If someone else gets chosen, she will still be proud of what they accomplished together. Fletch has reached a similar point. Earlier in the competition, he saw the opening act opportunity as something he absolutely needed. Now he understands that his future cannot depend on one decision. There will be other stages, other opportunities, and other moments when he can prove himself. That change is visible to everyone around him. Even the campers who once competed against each other begin encouraging one another. The tension that had dominated the camp for so long finally disappears, replaced by a sense of appreciation. They know that their summer is almost over, and suddenly they do not want to waste the remaining time worrying about who wins. Then Connect 3 make their announcement. The decision does not come down to a simple question of who has the strongest voice. Instead, the opportunity goes to the performer who showed the biggest combination of talent, confidence, teamwork, and potential. For the person chosen, the reaction is immediate. There is disbelief first, then excitement, then the realization that this dream is actually happening. The other campers congratulate the winner. Although there are mixed emotions behind some of the smiles, it would be unrealistic for everyone to feel completely happy about losing. Some are disappointed. Some need a moment to process what happened. But nobody can deny that the winner earned the opportunity. That is what makes the decision feel satisfying. The competition did not destroy the friendships. It tested them. And in the end, the friendships survived. Sage has her own emotional reaction to the result. Whether or not she receives the final opportunity, she understands that the competition taught her something more valuable than a spot on a tour. She learned how to trust other people, how to accept criticism, and how to stop measuring her worth against everyone around her. That lesson is especially important because success can be temporary. One performance can go perfectly. Another can go badly. One person can be chosen today, while another person gets the opportunity tomorrow. What matters is whether you keep going. That message also connects the new story to the original Camp Rock movies. Mitchie once faced the fear that her own voice would not be enough. She had to overcome the feeling that she needed to hide parts of herself before she could truly perform with confidence. Now the new campers are facing a similar challenge, but they are doing it in their own way. When Mitchie appears, the moment carries more weight because she understands exactly what they are going through. She does not need to give them a long speech. Her presence alone reminds them that the person they become is more important than the result they receive. The campers have spent so much time chasing a future that they almost forgot to appreciate the present. Now that the competition is over, they finally have the chance to look back at everything that happened. The late-night rehearsals. The arguments, the laughter, the unexpected friendships, the performances that went wrong. The moments when someone almost gave up. All of it has become part of their Camp Rock experience. And then comes the final celebration. Music fills the camp once again, but this time nobody is performing because they are being judged. Nobody is trying to impress Connect 3. Nobody is worrying about whether they are good enough. They are simply having fun. That difference changes everything. Sage joins the others, and for a moment, the competition feels like something that happened a long time ago. Fletch is there too, and their relationship finally feels less complicated because neither of them has anything left to prove. The campers perform together, and the scene becomes a celebration of everything they have learned. The spotlight moves from one performer to another. Nobody tries to dominate the stage. Everyone gets a moment. That is exactly what they were missing at the beginning. They thought being a star meant standing alone in the center. Now they understand that sometimes the best performance happens when everyone shines together. For Connect 3, watching the campers perform brings back memories of their own early days. They remember what it was like to be young ambitious, and completely convinced that the next performance would determine their future. But life did not work that way. Their careers continued. Long after those early moments, the same will be true for these campers. This competition is only one chapter. The stage they are standing on today is not the final destination. It is the beginning. And as the night continues, the campers begin talking about what comes next. Some are already thinking about returning to Camp Rock. Others are talking about recording music together. A few are making plans that have nothing to do with performing at all. That is another important part of growing up. Not everyone has to follow the same path. Some people discover that music is their future. Others discover that music simply helped them understand themselves. Both outcomes can be meaningful. As the final moments approach, Sage looks back at the camp and realizes that she came here wanting one thing, an opportunity, but she is leaving with something she never expected. She has learned that confidence does not come from other people choosing you. It comes from choosing yourself, and that may be the real victory at the heart of Camp Rock. 3. The stage gave these campers a chance to be heard, but Camp Rock gave them the courage to speak in their own voices. The summer is coming to an end. The competition is finished. The next chapter is waiting. And for the campers who once arrived as strangers, the hardest part is no longer competing against each other. It is saying goodbye. It is saying goodbye. The final days at Camp Rock feel completely different from the way the summer began. There is no longer that constant pressure hanging over everyone. The rehearsals have slowed down, the competition is finished, and the campers finally have time to realize that their summer is actually coming to an end. 4 weeks. Every morning started with another challenge. They had something to prove, someone to impress, or another performance to prepare. Now there is nothing left to chase. That freedom should make everyone happy, but instead, it creates a strange feeling around the camp. Everyone knows that the people they have become close to will soon be going in different directions. Sage notices it first. She walks through the camp and sees small reminders of everything that happened during the summer. The rehearsal spaces where everyone practiced until they were exhausted. The places where arguments started and friendships were repaired. The stage where they performed for Connect 3. Even the ordinary areas of the camp suddenly feel important because they are connected to memories that cannot be recreated in exactly the same way. Fletch finds Sage spending some time alone, and instead of asking her about the competition, he simply sits beside her. That small moment says more about how their relationship has changed than any dramatic conversation could. At the beginning, they were constantly trying to figure out what the other person was thinking. Now, they do not need to. They can sit together without having to fill every silence. Fletch tells her that he never expected the summer to turn out this way. He came to Camp Rock thinking mostly about music and the opportunity to perform. But he leaves realizing that the people he met may end up being more important than the opportunity itself. Sage agrees, although she admits that part of her is still scared. Not about leaving Camp Rock. About what happens after. At camp, everything was simple. There was always another rehearsal, another performance, another goal. Outside the camp, there will be school, family, expectations, and an uncertain future. The confidence she discovered here will have to survive in the real world. Fletch reminds her that confidence is not something that disappears just because the summer ends. She earned it. That gives Sage a sense of reassurance. Meanwhile, the other campers are dealing with the goodbye in their own ways. Rosie is trying to memorize every detail of the place before she leaves. Cliff keeps joking with everyone, but even he becomes quieter whenever the conversation turns toward going home. Callie is already talking about what she wants to work on next, while Desi is focused on keeping everyone connected after camp. Their plans are different, but they all share the same fear. What if they lose touch? That question is especially difficult because friendships created during a short period can sometimes feel stronger than relationships that took years to build. They have experienced something together that nobody outside the camp can completely understand. That is why they decide to make a promise. They will not allow the end of summer to become the end of their friendships. It sounds simple, but everyone knows keeping that promise will require effort. Connect 3 are preparing for the next stage of their reunion tour, and the selected camper is getting ready for an entirely new experience. Suddenly, the dream that seemed impossible at the beginning is becoming reality. There are rehearsals to attend. New songs to learn. Travel arrangements. Press appearances. And eventually, the first major concert for the chosen performer. The excitement is mixed with fear. Being selected was one thing. actually stepping onto a professional stage is something completely different. Shane understands that immediately. He takes the young performer aside and explains that the first big show will probably feel overwhelming. There may be thousands of people watching. There may be cameras everywhere. There may even be moments when the crowd is so loud that it becomes difficult to hear yourself think. But he tells them not to focus on the size of the audience. Focus on the song. Focus on the people beside you. And remember why you wanted to perform in the first place. That advice becomes one of the most important lessons of the entire experience, because the entertainment industry can make everything feel like a competition. Who has more followers? Who sold more tickets? Who got the biggest reaction? Who is trending? Who is being talked about? Those questions can easily become more important than the music itself. Connect 3 know that better than anyone. Their careers have lasted because they learned how to survive beyond the excitement of being young stars. They understand that fame can change quickly, but a genuine connection with an audience can last much longer. The campers are beginning to understand that too. Even those who did not win the opening act opportunity are not leaving empty-handed. They return home with new skills, new confidence, and a clear idea of what they want. Some discover that they want to continue performing. Others decide to focus on writing music. A few realize that they simply enjoyed being part of the experience and do not necessarily want a career in entertainment. There is no wrong answer. That is another reason the ending feels more personal than competitive. Camp Rock was never really about creating one winner. It was about giving young people a place where they could discover something about themselves. Mitchie understands that better than anyone. When she speaks with the campers before they leave, she does not tell them that success is guaranteed. She does not promise that every dream will come true. Instead, she gives them something much more realistic. She tells them that they will probably fail. Sometimes they will hear no. They will have performances that do not go well. They will meet people who do not believe in them. But none of those moments should convince them to stop being themselves. Her words resonate with Sage because she has spent much of the summer worrying about whether other people approve of her. Now she understands that approval is not the foundation of confidence. It is simply a bonus. The real foundation is knowing who you are when nobody is clapping. As the final evening arrives, everyone gathers together one last time. There is music, laughter, and a feeling that nobody wants the night to end. The campers perform one final song together. This time, there is no competition. No judges. No winner. No pressure. Just music. The performance becomes a reflection of everything they have learned. At the beginning of the summer, they were individuals trying to stand out. Now, they are a group that understands how to stand together. The final song builds slowly before the entire camp joins in. Sage looks around and sees the faces of the people who changed her summer. Fletch is beside her. Rosie is smiling. Cliff is performing like he has nothing left to prove. The others are completely lost in the moment. Even Connect 3 watch from the side, knowing that they are witnessing something that cannot be recreated once everyone goes home. When the final note ends, nobody immediately speaks. Then the applause begins. It is not the applause of a competition. It is the applause of people celebrating what they have shared. And that makes it more meaningful than anything that happened earlier. The next morning, Camp Rock becomes quiet again. Bags are packed, goodbyes are exchanged, promises are made. Some campers cry. Others try to hide their emotions behind jokes. Sage takes one last look around the camp before leaving. She remembers arriving unsure of herself and desperate to prove that she belonged. Now she knows she never needed to prove it. She belonged because she had something to say, because she had something to share, because she was willing to step onto the stage even when she was afraid. Fletch walks beside her as they leave. Neither of them knows exactly what the future will bring, but that uncertainty no longer feels frightening. It feels exciting because they know they are not the same people who arrived at Camp Rock. They are stronger now, more confident, and more willing to take chances. The camp gates close behind them, but the story does not really end there. The music continues. The friendships continue, the dreams continue, and somewhere on another stage, Connect 3 are preparing for their next concert, while a new performer gets ready to step in front of an audience that has no idea what is about to happen. For that young performer, the first step onto the stage will probably feel terrifying. But then the music will begin, and everything will make sense, because that is what camp rock has always been about, finding the courage to be heard. And sometimes, the most important thing you can take home from a summer at Camp Rock is not a trophy, a record deal, or a place on a tour. It is the belief that your voice is worth hearing. And once you discover that, nobody can take it away from you. Once you discover that, nobody can take it away from you. Leaving Camp Rock was supposed to feel like the end of the summer, but for the campers, it quickly becomes clear that it is actually the beginning of something much bigger. The routines they had at camp are gone now. There are no morning rehearsals, no group meetings, and no familiar faces waiting around every corner. Everyone has returned to their normal lives, but normal does not feel quite the same anymore. For Sage, going home creates an unexpected challenge. At Camp Rock, she had finally learned how to perform without constantly worrying about what other people thought of her. Back home, that confidence is tested almost immediately. People who were not part of the summer do not understand what happened at camp, and some of them do not realize how much she has changed. That becomes an important reminder for Sage. Confidence is easy to feel when you are surrounded by people who understand your journey. It is much harder when you return to an environment where nobody knows what you have been through. At first, she struggles with that. She starts questioning whether the person she became at Camp Rock was only temporary. Maybe she was confident because the camp gave her a safe place to be herself. Maybe once she returned home, all the old doubts would come back. But then she remembers something Fletch told her before they left. Confidence is not a place. It is something you carry with you. That thought changes the way she looks at everything. Instead of waiting for someone else to recognize her growth, Sage begins creating opportunities for herself. She starts working on new music, experimenting with different sounds, and thinking about what kind of performer she actually wants to become. For the first time, she is not trying to sound like someone else. She is trying to sound like Sage. Fletch is dealing with his own transition. His connection with Sage continues even though they are no longer together at camp every day. Their conversations are different now. They talk about music, their future, and the possibility of seeing each other again, but there is still uncertainty between them. Neither wants to make promises they cannot keep. They both know that their lives are changing. The opportunity with Connect 3 has opened another door for the selected performer, and suddenly the dream that once seemed far away has become a schedule filled with rehearsals and performances. The first professional rehearsal is intimidating. Everything is bigger. The stage is bigger. The sound system is bigger. The production team is bigger. And there are people watching whose jobs depend on the performance going well. The young performer remembers Camp Rock and realizes that those rehearsals suddenly feel very different. At camp, making a mistake meant starting again with your friends. On a professional tour, mistakes happen in front of an audience. That fear begins affecting the performance. During rehearsal, the performer misses a cue and loses track of the choreography. The music continues, but the confidence disappears. Instead of becoming angry, Connect 3 stop the rehearsal. Shane walks over and tells them something simple. Nobody expects the first rehearsal to be perfect. The goal is not to prove that you are already a professional. The goal is to learn how to become one. That changes everything. The performer takes a breath and tries again. This time, the mistake is smaller. Then another rehearsal follows. And another. Slowly, the fear begins turning into confidence. That is one of the biggest differences between performing at Camp Rock and performing professionally. At camp, the campers were discovering whether they had talent. Now they are learning what it takes to turn that talent into something consistent. The lesson is difficult, but it is exactly what they need. Meanwhile, back home, Sage begins missing the group more than she expected. She finds herself listening to songs they performed together and remembering moments that seemed ordinary at the time. A joke during rehearsal, a late-night conversation, a disagreement that seemed huge but now feels almost funny. She realizes that memories become more valuable when you know they cannot happen again in exactly the same way. That motivates her to contact the others. Soon, the old group chat becomes active again. Messages start appearing one after another. Everyone is busy, but nobody wants the friendships to disappear. They begin sharing updates about their lives. Rosie talks about the music she has been working on. Cliff is experimenting with new performance ideas. Callie is already planning another project. Desi is trying to organize a virtual rehearsal so everyone can perform together again. The idea starts as a joke, then it becomes serious. They decide to recreate one of their camp rock performances from home. It is not perfect, the audio is slightly different, everyone is in a different location, some people forget their timing, but when they finish, everyone starts laughing. It feels like camp rock again. That moment reminds them that the camp was never the only thing holding them together. Their friendship survived the distance, and that realization gives Sage another boost of confidence. She starts thinking about the future differently. Instead of wondering whether she can become a successful performer, she begins asking a much more interesting question. What kind of artist does she want to become? The answer does not come immediately. She tries different songs. Some work, some do not. She records one track and deletes it the same night because it does not feel honest. Then she writes another. This one is different. It is quieter, more personal. And for the first time, she is not thinking about whether it will impress Connect 3, the audience, or anyone else. She simply likes it. That is how she knows she is moving in the right direction. At the same time, the Connect 3 tour is getting closer to its first major concert. The selected camper receives the final schedule and suddenly realizes just how real everything has become. The name is printed on the official materials. The stage has been prepared. The rehearsal venue is filled with crew members. There is no turning back. Before the first show, the nerves return. The performer stands backstage listening to the crowd outside. Thousands of voices. Thousands of people waiting. For a moment, the excitement disappears and the fear comes back. Then the opening music begins. Connect 3 walk onto the stage. The audience erupts. The energy moves through the entire venue. And suddenly, the young performer understands why all those rehearsals mattered. This is not camp rock anymore. This is the real thing. The first song goes perfectly. Then the second. And when the moment finally comes for the new performer to step onto the stage, there is a brief hesitation. One breath. One final thought about camp rock. Then they walk forward. The lights hit. The crowd reacts. And the fear disappears. The first few seconds feel unreal, but then the music starts. The performer sings, not perfectly, not without nerves, but honestly. And somewhere in the audience, a young fan is watching and imagining themselves standing on that same stage one day. That is the moment the entire journey finally makes sense. The opportunity was never only about becoming famous. It was about becoming an example for somebody else. The same way Connect 3 once inspired a generation of young fans, this new performer now has the chance to inspire someone watching from the crowd. Backstage after the performance, Shane smiles. He does not say much. He does not need to. The performer already understands. They did it. The first professional performance is over. And suddenly, the future does not look quite so frightening. There will be more shows, more mistakes, more opportunities. More difficult decisions. But there will also be more songs, more stages. More memories. And the confidence to face whatever comes next. Back home, Sage watches a video from the concert. She smiles when she sees the performance. She is proud, but not jealous. That is another sign of how much she has changed. She no longer sees another person's success as proof that she has failed. She sees it as proof that dreams can actually become real. And maybe her own dream is closer than she thinks. She opens the notebook where she has been writing songs. There are unfinished lyrics everywhere, some crossed out, some rewritten several times. At the top of a new page, she writes one sentence. This time, she is not writing for a competition, she is writing for herself. And as the story moves forward, that small decision may become more important than any trophy or performance she could have won at Camp Rock, because the summer taught her how to stand on a stage. Now she has to discover what she wants to say once she gets there. The new song stays on Sage's mind for days. She keeps coming back to the same notebook, changing a line here and removing another one there. She is no longer writing because she thinks someone at Camp Rock might hear it or because she wants to impress Connect 3. This time, there is no competition attached to it. The song is simply something she needs to get out of her head. That makes the process strangely difficult. When there is a competition, the goal is obvious. You know what you are trying to achieve, and you know who is judging you. Writing for yourself is different because there is nowhere to hide. If the song feels fake, she knows it immediately. So she starts over. The second version is more personal. It reflects everything that happened during the summer without directly trying to retell it. It is about leaving a place that changed you and realizing that you cannot go back to the person you were before. When Sage finally records a rough version, She listens to it several times. There are imperfections. Her voice is not perfectly polished. The production is simple, but the emotion feels real. And that matters more to her than anything else. She decides to send it to FLETCH. His reaction is not what she expects. He does not immediately start talking about how it could become a hit. Instead, he tells her that it sounds like her. That is exactly what she needed to hear. Fletch suggests that they work on it together, but Sage hesitates. She wants the song to remain personal, and she worries that adding another person might change what makes it special. Fletch understands. He tells her he does not need to be part of the song. He just wants to help her make it as good as it can be. That conversation shows how different their relationship has become. Earlier, they were constantly worried about where they stood with each other. Now there is much more trust between them. They can support each other without needing to control the outcome. Eventually, Sage agrees to let Fletch help. They begin working remotely, sending ideas back and forth. One person changes a melody, the other adjusts the lyrics. They argue about small details, laugh when something sounds terrible, and celebrate when they finally create a section that feels right. It is not easy. There are moments when they disagree, but unlike before, disagreement does not automatically become a fight. They have learned how to listen. And that lesson came directly from Camp Rock. At the same time, the Connect 3 tour continues. The new performer is becoming more comfortable on stage with every show. What felt terrifying during the first performance now feels exciting. They have learned how to read the audience, recover from mistakes, and stay focused even when something unexpected happens. But success brings another kind of pressure. People start recognizing them. Fans ask for photographs. Social media posts begin appearing. Short clips from performances start spreading. Suddenly, the performer who was worried about being noticed at Camp Rock is being noticed everywhere. At first, it feels amazing. Then it becomes overwhelming. Every performance is recorded. Every mistake can become a clip. Every outfit can be discussed. Every interview question can be misunderstood. The attention that once seemed like the ultimate dream begins showing its more complicated side. Shane notices the change. He tells the young performer that fame is not the same thing as success. Being recognized does not automatically mean you are happy. Being talked about does not automatically mean you are respected. And having thousands of followers does not mean you have thousands of friends. Those words hit hard because the performer has already started feeling isolated. They thought becoming successful would make everything easier. Instead, it has created new problems they never expected. That becomes another important turning point. The performer has to decide what parts of their new life they actually want. Do they want constant attention? Do they want to become a celebrity? Or do they simply want to make music? The answer is not immediately clear. Meanwhile, Sage's song continues developing. She and Fletch eventually create a version that they are genuinely proud of. The song is emotional without being overly dramatic. It captures the feeling of moving forward while still carrying the memories of the past. When the rest of the Camp Rock group hears it, their reactions are surprisingly emotional. Rosie tells Sage that the song reminds her of the last night at camp. Cliff jokes that he is definitely not crying. Nobody believes him. Callie says that the song feels like something they could all perform together. That idea stays with Sage. Maybe the song should not be only hers. Maybe it should belong to all of them. She realizes that the story she is trying to tell is not just her story. It belongs to everyone who spent that summer at Camp Rock. So they begin arranging a group version. Each person contributes something. Rosie adds her instrument. Cliff develops the rhythm. Callie works on the movement. Desi helps with the arrangement. Fletch remains involved throughout the process. For a moment, they are back at Camp Rock again, not physically, but musically, and that is enough. The song becomes a reminder that distance does not have to erase connection. When they finally record the group version, everyone listens together. There is silence when it ends. Then Sage smiles. She knows this is the song she wanted to write. Not because it is perfect, because it is theirs. The idea of performing it together becomes impossible to ignore. They begin discussing whether they could reunite for a special performance. Nothing huge. Nothing complicated. Just one stage, one song, one chance to be together again. But making it happen is harder than expected. Everyone has different schedules. The Connect 3 tour is still running. School, Commitments are getting in the way. Some parents are worried about the logistics. And suddenly, the simple idea of performing together becomes a major challenge. Sage starts wondering whether they should abandon the plan. Maybe the timing is wrong. Maybe the summer really was meant to stay in the past. Then Fletch reminds her of something important. They do not need to recreate Camp Rock. They only need to create something new that changes the way Sage sees the situation. Instead of trying to repeat the final performance from camp, they decide to build something completely different, a performance that represents who they are now. The group begins rehearsing online. It is chaotic. Someone's connection freezes. Someone forgets the lyrics. Someone starts laughing at the worst possible moment. But the more they practice, the better it becomes. And eventually, the idea starts becoming real. They have a chance to perform together again. This time, they are not campers competing for a place on stage. They are friends who have chosen to return to the stage together. That difference matters. As the date approaches, Sage begins feeling nervous again, but it is not the same nervousness she felt before the Camp Rock competition. Back then, she was afraid she would not be good enough. Now, she is afraid because she actually cares about the performance. That is a much healthier kind of fear. The selected performer from the Connect 3 tour is also invited to join them. The idea brings everything together. The person who won the original opportunity is now performing beside the people who shared the journey with them. There is no jealousy. No competition. Just collaboration. And that may be the clearest sign that the campers have truly changed. The stage is prepared. The lights are tested. The instruments are ready. The audience begins arriving. Behind the curtain, the group stands together. For a second, everyone remembers Camp Rock, but this time, they do not need the camp to make them feel connected. They already are. Sage looks at Fletch. He smiles. The music begins. And they step onto the stage together. Not as contestants. Not as strangers. Not as young performers trying to prove themselves, but as a group that discovered something far more valuable than a single opportunity. They discovered that finding your voice does not mean standing alone. Sometimes, it means finding the people who make you brave enough to use it. It means finding the people who make you brave enough to use it. The first notes fill the venue, and for a moment, Sage forgets about everything that happened before this night. There is no competition to win, no judge waiting to score them, and no fear that one mistake will cost them an opportunity. There is only the music and the people standing beside her. That difference changes the entire performance. The group does not try to make the song bigger than it needs to be. They let the emotion build naturally, allowing each person to contribute something different. Sage carries the heart of the song, while Fletch adds another layer to the performance. Rosie brings the musical element that has become part of her identity, and the rest of the group fills the stage with the energy they developed during their time together. From the audience, it looks effortless. Behind the scenes, everyone knows how much work went into making this moment possible. Every rehearsal where something went wrong, every late-night message, every argument about the arrangement, every time someone wondered whether the performance would actually happen, all of those moments disappear once the music begins. The audience reacts almost immediately. People who know the campers recognize how much they have grown since the summer. They are not watching the same nervous performers who once struggled to stand confidently in front of a crowd. These young artists now understand how to own a stage without allowing the stage to control them. Sage notices something unexpected while performing. She is not thinking about herself. At Camp Rock, she spent so much time wondering whether people were watching her, whether they liked her performance, and whether she was good enough. Tonight, she barely thinks about any of that. She is thinking about the group. She is listening to the music. She is enjoying the moment. And that is when she realizes how much she has changed. The song reaches its final section, and Fletch steps closer. Their voices blend together naturally, creating the moment they had been trying to find during rehearsals. There is no awkwardness between them anymore. Whatever uncertainty existed before has been replaced by trust. When the final note ends, the venue erupts. For a few seconds, the group simply stands there. Then everyone starts smiling. Rosie laughs. Cliff raises his hands toward the crowd. Callie looks at the others as if she still cannot believe they actually made it happen. Sage looks toward Fletch. Neither of them says anything. They do not have to. They both know this moment means something. Backstage, the reaction is just as emotional. The members of Connect 3 congratulate the group, but Shane's reaction stands out. He tells them that the performance worked because nobody was trying to be the most important person on the stage. They trusted each other. That is what made the performance feel real. The compliment means more to Sage than she expected. Earlier, she wanted Connect 3 to choose her because she believed their decision would prove that she had talent. Now their approval feels different. It is no longer something she needs. It is simply something she appreciates. That is an important distinction. Success feels different when you stop depending on it to tell you who you are. The group celebrates after the show, but the evening does not turn into a huge party. Instead, they find a quiet place where they can sit together and talk. They start remembering the first day at Camp Rock. Nobody was comfortable. Nobody knew exactly what to expect. Some people barely spoke to each other. Others immediately started competing. It feels almost impossible that those strangers became this close. Cliff brings up one of their earliest rehearsals and everyone starts laughing. Rosie remembers how nervous she was before performing. Callie admits that she was convinced she would embarrass herself. Fletch talks about how he tried to act confident even when he had no idea what he was doing. Then everyone looks at Sage. She smiles and admits that she was probably the most worried of all of them. But now she understands something. Being afraid never meant she was not ready. It simply meant that the moment mattered to her. That realization allows her to look back at the entire journey differently. The mistakes were not wasted time. The arguments were not meaningless. Even the moments when she felt like giving up had a purpose. They forced her to grow. And that is what makes the night feel like more than another performance. It becomes a closing chapter. Not the end of Camp Rock. Not the end of their friendships, but the end of the version of themselves that first walked into that camp. The next morning, everyone wakes up with a strange feeling. They are happy about the performance, but there is also uncertainty about what comes next. The group has proven that they can work together. The audience responded. The song connected with people. And now there are suddenly new possibilities. People begin asking whether they could record more music together. The idea sounds exciting, but it also creates a difficult question. Do they actually want to turn their friendship into a professional project? At first, everyone has a different opinion. Cliff thinks it would be amazing. Callie is interested but worried about the pressure. Rosie wants to make sure the music remains genuine. Fletch is open to the idea but does not want the group to become another competition. Sage listens to everyone before saying what she really thinks. They should not decide anything because they are afraid of losing the moment. If they make music together, it should be because they genuinely want to. That answer satisfies everyone. There is no need to rush. The future can wait. For now, they can enjoy what they created. But then something unexpected happens. A short clip from their performance begins spreading online. At first, none of them pays much attention. Then the numbers start growing. People are sharing the performance. Comments are appearing. Fans are asking who the young performers are. Some viewers recognize the Camp Rock connection immediately. Others are discovering them for the first time. The group is suddenly receiving attention again. This time, however, they are much better prepared for it. They have already experienced what attention can do. They know that popularity can be exciting without becoming the center of their lives. Sage especially understands that now. She does not spend hours refreshing the page to see how many people watched the performance. Instead, she focuses on the messages that actually matter. One message comes from a young fan who says the performance gave them the confidence to audition for their school musical. Another person says they started playing an instrument after watching the group. A third says they had forgotten how much they loved singing until they heard the song. Those messages affect Sage more than any number could, because suddenly she understands what being a performer can really mean. You do not always know who is watching. You do not always know what your music will mean to someone. But sometimes, a song reaches a person at exactly the right moment. That is something fame cannot measure. Meanwhile, the selected performer continues touring with Connect 3. Their career is beginning to move faster than expected. New opportunities appear. Producers start asking questions. People want to know what comes next. But this time, the performer remembers the lessons from Camp Rock. They do not say yes to everything. They take time to think. They remember why they started. And they keep the people around them who knew them before the spotlight arrived. That becomes one of the most important lessons of the entire journey. Success can change your surroundings very quickly, but it does not have to change your identity. As the story moves forward, the group begins making plans for another gathering. Not another competition. Not another audition. Just another chance to be together. The location is still undecided. The date is uncertain. Everyone's schedule is complicated. But nobody cares, because now they understand that the important part is not where they meet. It is that they keep choosing to meet. Sage closes her notebook that evening and looks at the song they created together. There are still unfinished ideas written on the next page, new melodies, new lyrics. New possibilities. She smiles. For the first time, she is not afraid of what comes next. She does not know whether she will become a famous singer. She does not know whether the group will make another song. She does not know where her relationship with Fletch will eventually lead. And strangely, she is completely comfortable with that uncertainty. Camp Rock taught her that the future does not need to be perfectly planned. Sometimes you just have to take the next step. The music will come. The opportunities will come. The difficult moments will come too. But now she knows she can handle them. And somewhere in the distance, another stage is waiting. Not because someone promised her a place on it. The attention from the performance does not disappear overnight. If anything, it continues growing during the following weeks. What started as one video shared between friends slowly reaches people who were never even part of the Camp Rock experience. For the group, that creates an entirely new situation. They are no longer just remembering the summer together. They are beginning to understand that other people are now interested in what they can create. Sage is the first person to realize how quickly things could change. She receives a message from someone interested in hearing more of her music. It is not a huge record deal or some unbelievable offer, but it is enough to make her stop and think. A few months earlier, she would have immediately assumed that saying yes was the only option. Now she takes her time. She talks to her family. She talks to FLETCH. And eventually, she talks to the people she met at Camp Rock. Their advice is surprisingly consistent. Do not rush. That sounds simple, but for Sage it is an important lesson. She spent so much of the competition trying to reach the next stage that she sometimes forgot to enjoy where she already was. She does not want to make the same mistake again. So instead of accepting the first opportunity simply because it sounds exciting, she asks questions. What kind of music would she be making? Would she have creative control? Who would she be working with? Would the opportunity help her grow? Or would it simply turn her into another performer following someone else's plan? Those questions show how much she has matured. Meanwhile, Fletch is dealing with his own decisions. He has received attention because of the performance too, and several people are interested in seeing what he can do outside the group. At first, he is excited. Then the pressure starts. People begin comparing him to other young performers. Some comments praise him, others criticize him. He knows he should ignore it, but that is easier said than done. One night, he admits to Sage that he has started checking comments more often than he wants to. Sage understands immediately. She has been there herself. Instead of telling him to simply stop caring, she tells him something more useful. If he spends all his energy trying to become the person strangers want him to be, he will eventually forget who he actually is. Fletch laughs and says that sounds like something Mitchie would say. Sage smiles. Maybe it is, but that does not make it less true. Their conversation brings them closer again, but it also forces both of them to think about what their relationship actually means. They have shared an intense experience, supported each other through difficult moments, and continued talking even after Camp Rock ended. There is clearly something between them, but neither wants to rush it. For now, friendship feels safe, and perhaps that is exactly what they need. The rest of the group is also moving forward. Rosie has started performing locally and is becoming much more comfortable playing in front of people. She still gets nervous, but now she understands that nervousness does not have to control her. Cliff has discovered that he enjoys producing music as much as performing it. He begins experimenting with beats and arrangements, and his friends quickly realize that he has a natural ability to bring different sounds together. Callie continues developing her choreography and starts helping younger performers prepare for auditions. Desi becomes the person everyone turns to when schedules become impossible to organize. They are all following different paths, but Camp Rock remains the connection between them. Then an unexpected invitation arrives. Connect 3 are planning a special concert to celebrate their reunion tour, and they want the Camp Rock performers to appear as special guests. The message creates immediate excitement. Everyone wants to say yes, but there is a problem. The date is extremely close. Everyone has commitments. Sage has her new music opportunity. Fletch has rehearsals. Rosie has another performance scheduled. Callie is working on choreography. For a moment, it looks like they will not be able to make it happen. That possibility disappoints everyone. After everything they have been through, missing the chance to perform together again feels unfair, but Sage refuses to give up. Immediately, she starts contacting everyone. Schedules are compared, flights are discussed, rehearsals are moved, some commitments are rescheduled. Others cannot be changed. Eventually, they realize they do not need everyone to be available for the entire event. They just need to find a way to make the performance possible. That becomes another lesson. Growing up means learning that friendship cannot always look like it did at camp. At Camp Rock, everyone was together every day. Outside camp, everyone has responsibilities. They cannot always be in the same room. They cannot always answer messages immediately. They cannot always attend every event. But that does not mean the friendship is weaker. It simply means the friendship has grown up too. When the concert finally arrives, the atmosphere is completely different. From their first performance together, there is no uncertainty about whether they belong. They know they do. They have already performed in front of a major audience. They have already experienced the pressure. Now they are returning to the stage because they want to. Backstage, Sage notices that Connect 3 look more relaxed than usual. She asks Shane if he is nervous. He laughs. Of course he is. He explains that experience does not eliminate nerves. It simply teaches you how to perform while you have them. That sentence stays with Sage. She realizes that confidence was never about becoming fearless. It was about learning how to move forward while fear was still there. The concert begins. Connect 3 perform first. The crowd sings along to songs that have been part of their lives for years, and for the younger performers, seeing that reaction is surreal. These 3 men once stood where they are standing. Now young, excited, trying to prove themselves. And now an entirely new generation is watching them. The connection between generations becomes impossible to miss. When the Camp Rock group is finally introduced, the crowd reacts loudly. Sage steps onto the stage. This time, she does not hesitate. She looks toward the audience and sees people of different ages. Some grew up with Camp Rock, others are discovering the franchise through the new movie, and some are simply there for the music. She realizes that they do not need to perform differently for each group. They just need to perform honestly. The song begins. The performance is bigger than the one they did before. There are professional lights, a massive sound system, and thousands of people watching, but somehow Sage feels calmer than she did at Camp Rock. Maybe because she has finally stopped trying to prove herself. The group performs together, and the audience responds. Then the music changes. A familiar melody begins. The crowd recognizes it immediately. Connect 3 join them on stage. For a few seconds, the old and new generations are sharing the same stage. It is exactly the kind of moment long-time fans hoped they would see. But the performance does not become a simple recreation of the past. The new performers bring their own energy. Connect 3 at their experience. The result feels like two different ears meeting in the middle. And then another surprise happens. Mitchie walks onto the stage. The reaction from the audience is immediate. Sage looks toward her, almost stunned. Mitchie smiles. She does not need to say anything. Her presence completes the connection between the original Camp Rock story and the new generation. The performance continues, with everyone sharing the stage. For the fans, it is pure nostalgia. For the campers, it is something much more personal. They are standing beside the people whose careers inspired the world they entered, and now they are being given the chance to inspire someone else. When the song ends, the entire stage is filled with applause. Sage looks around and realizes that this moment would have been impossible for the person she was at the beginning of the summer. Back then, she thought the goal was to be chosen. Now she understands that the real goal was to become ready. Ready for the stage. Ready for failure, ready for success, ready for change, and ready to keep moving when the applause finally stops. After the concert, everyone gathers backstage. There are hugs, laughter, photographs, and a lot of disbelief. But beneath all the excitement is a quiet understanding. This is another beginning. The Camp Rock journey did not end when they left the camp. It followed them home. It changed the way they saw music. It changed the way they saw friendship, and it changed the way they saw themselves. Sage looks at the others and realizes that they may never again have a summer exactly like the one they shared. But maybe they do. not need another one. They already have the memories. Now they have the future. And this time, they are not waiting for someone else to decide where that future will take them. The morning after the concert feels almost unreal. Everyone is still talking about the performance, the surprise appearance, and the reaction from the crowd, but underneath all that excitement is a feeling none of them expected. For the first time, the group understands that their camp rock experience has become something they can actually carry into the future. They are no longer simply remembering what happened. They are building on it. Sage wakes up early and finds herself thinking about the stage. She remembers the lights, the crowd, and the moment when everyone came together for the final song. But what stays with her most is not the applause. It is the feeling she had before the performance began. She was not afraid. At least, not in the way she used to be. There were nerves, of course, but they did not control her. She had finally learned how to let the excitement be stronger than the fear. That realization makes her think about the song she has been writing. For weeks, she has been wondering whether she is ready to take music seriously outside of camp rock. Now she understands that waiting until she feels completely ready might mean waiting forever. So she makes a decision. She is going to record the song properly, not because she expects it to become a hit, not because she wants to compete with anyone, because she wants to hear what it sounds like when the idea she wrote in her notebook becomes a real song. Fletch immediately supports the decision. He offers to help with the production, but this time Sage knows exactly what she wants. She has become more confident about making creative choices, and Fletch respects that. Their work together becomes easier because neither of them is trying to prove anything. They sit down with the song and start rebuilding it from the beginning. The first version is too polished. Sage does not like it. The second version is too dramatic. She rejects that too. Eventually, they strip everything back, a simple melody, a clean arrangement, and lyrics that sound like something Sage would actually say. When they finish the first complete version, they listen to it in silence. Then Sage smiles. This is it. It sounds like her. That matters more than anything else. But before she can release the song, another problem appears. People around her begin giving advice. Some say she needs a bigger production. Others want a more commercial sound. Someone suggests changing the lyrics to make the song easier to market. Another person tells her that she should wait until she has a stronger social media following. For a moment, the old Sage starts returning. The part of her that wants everyone to approve. The part that worries about making the wrong decision. The part that thinks success requires following someone else's formula. Then she remembers everything camp rock taught her. She does not have to become someone else to succeed. So she keeps the song the way she wants it. That decision creates tension with some of the people advising her, but Sage refuses to back down. For the first time, she understands that having a voice also means having an opinion. Meanwhile, the selected performer from the Connect 3 tour is facing an entirely different challenge. The tour is becoming more successful, and with success comes bigger expectations. The next performance is going to be filmed for a major promotional release. That means every mistake will be captured. The pressure becomes intense. During rehearsal, the performer becomes frustrated and starts doubting whether they are actually ready for this level of attention. Shane notices. He does not try to make the fear disappear. Instead, he reminds them of their first performance. They were terrified then to. The difference is that they stepped onto the stage anyway. That is the lesson they need again. The performer takes a breath and continues rehearsing. The mistake that caused the problem earlier happens again, but this time, they recover without stopping. Everyone notices. That recovery becomes more important than performing perfectly, because professional performers are not people who never make mistakes. They are people who know how to keep going when something goes wrong. That lesson becomes especially valuable during the next concert. The performance begins normally. The crowd is excited. The lights are perfect. Everything is going according to plan. Then, halfway through the song, one of the technical elements fails. The sound briefly drops. The performer cannot hear the backing track. For a second, panic takes over. Then they hear the audience. Thousands of people begin clapping along. The performer realizes they do not need the technology to keep the moment alive. They continue singing. The audience follows. The band adjusts. And within seconds, the mistake becomes one of the most memorable moments of the night. Backstage afterward, everyone is impressed. The performer realizes something important. Sometimes, The moments you fear most become the moments people remember. That idea also influences Sage. When she finally prepares to release her song, she decides not to make a huge announcement. She simply shares it. No dramatic campaign. No promise that it will change the world. Just a message explaining that she wrote it after Camp Rock and that it means something personal to her. The response is immediate. People listen. Some love it, some do not. There are positive comments, negative comments, and everything in between. Sage reads a few of them and then closes the app. She does not need to know what everyone thinks. The song already accomplished what she wanted. It exists. It is hers, and people are hearing it. That is enough. Fletch is proud of her. He tells her that she finally stopped asking whether people would approve of her music. She simply made it. Sage laughs and admits that she still cares what people think. She is not completely fearless. She has just learned not to let other people's opinions control her. That is a much more realistic form of confidence. The rest of the Camp Rock group also begins finding opportunities. Rosie is invited to perform at a small music event. Cliff gets a chance to help produce another artist's track. Callie is offered the opportunity to choreograph a youth performance. Desi begins organizing a creative workshop for younger campers. None of these opportunities are enormous, but they are real, and they are exactly what the group needs. They are building careers one step at a time instead of waiting for one giant moment to change everything. That becomes another important lesson from their journey. The entertainment industry often looks like it is filled with overnight success stories, but behind almost every successful performer are years of practice, rejection, small performances, and moments when nobody was watching. The campers are beginning to understand that now. Their Camp Rock experience gave them a beginning. It did not give them a guaranteed future. They still have to work for it. And strangely, they are excited about that. Because now they know what they are working toward. One evening, the group gathers on a video call. They talk about their different projects and laugh about how impossible it is to find a date when everyone is free. Eventually, someone jokes that they need another Camp Rock. Everyone becomes quiet for a moment. Then the laughter starts. The idea sounds ridiculous. Another summer together. Another competition, another group of campers. But the more they talk about it, the more interesting the idea becomes. Maybe the story does not have to end here. Maybe Camp Rock can continue, not as a competition, not as a copy of what came before, but as a place where another generation can discover music and friendship. Sage looks at the others and realizes something. They once came to Camp Rock hoping to become performers. Now they could become the people who help someone else become one. That possibility feels bigger than any stage. And as the call ends, everyone agrees on one thing. They are not finished. Their summer may be over, their first performance may be behind them, but the music is only beginning. Sage closes her laptop and looks toward the notebook on her desk. There are already new lyrics written on the next page. This time, she does not hesitate. She picks up her pen and starts writing. The new lyrics come faster than Sage expects. Once she stops worrying about whether every line has to be perfect, the words begin to feel natural. She writes about the people she met, the things she learned, and the strange feeling of watching one chapter of her life end while another one is already beginning. This time, however, she is not writing about Camp Rock itself. She is writing about what comes after. That makes the song feel different from everything she has created before. There is excitement in it, but there is also uncertainty. Growing up means realizing that nobody can tell you exactly what your future is going to look like. You can make plans, set goals, and dream as big as you want. But eventually you still have to step forward without knowing what is waiting for you. Sage likes that idea. She decides to call the song What Comes Next. When Fletch hears the first version, he immediately notices that it is more mature than her previous work. The sound is still connected to the energy they discovered at Camp Rock, but the message is different. It is not about proving yourself to other people. It is about accepting that you cannot control everything. They begin working on the arrangement. This time, Sage knows exactly how she wants the song to feel. She wants the opening to be quiet, almost vulnerable. Then she wants the music to gradually become bigger, as if the uncertainty is turning into confidence. Fletch understands the idea. Immediately. They build the song piece by piece. The first verse stays simple. The second introduces more instruments. Then the chorus opens everything up. When they reach the final section, they realize something is missing. Sage looks at Fletch. He already knows what she is thinking. The group, they Invite the others to contribute. Rosie adds her instrumental part. Cliff works on the rhythm. Callie helps create the movement that will eventually accompany the song. Desi contributes ideas for the final arrangement. And suddenly, the song becomes something larger than Sage originally imagined. It is still her song. But now it carries pieces of everyone that feels appropriate. After everything they experienced together, it would almost feel strange for their next chapter to be completely separate. The group decides they want to perform the song together for the first time at a small event. Nothing huge. No massive stage. No television cameras. Just a live audience. The kind of place where they can experiment without feeling like the entire world is watching. But when the day arrives, Sage is nervous, not because she is afraid of the audience, because she knows this performance represents something. It is the first time they are performing new material after camp rock. There are no old memories protecting them. No familiar song to fall back on. No competition forcing them onto the stage. They are there because they chose to be. Before they go on, everyone gathers backstage. Cliff makes a joke to break the tension. Rosie laughs. Callie checks the choreography one final time. Fletch looks at Sage. You ready? Sage takes a breath. This time, she does not say yes immediately. She looks at the group, then she smiles. Yeah. The lights come up. They walk onto the stage. The audience does not know exactly what to expect. Some people recognize them from Camp Rock. Others have heard Sage's previous song. A few are simply there because they enjoy live music. The opening begins quietly. Sage stands alone for the first few seconds. Her voice is soft. There is no attempt to impress the audience. She simply tells the story. Then Fletch joins. The sound grows. Rosie's instrument enters. Cliff adds the rhythm. The rest of the group moves into position. By the time the chorus arrives, the entire stage is alive. Sage looks into the crowd and sees people smiling. Not because everything is perfect, because the performance feels genuine. And that is exactly what she wanted. When the final note ends, the audience applauds. Sage looks toward the others. Everyone is smiling. They did it again, but this time, they did not need Connect 3. They did not need Camp Rock. They did not need anyone to tell them they were ready. They simply walked onto the stage and created something themselves. That realization stays with them after the performance. Later that night, the group sits together and talks about what happened. They all agree that it felt different. Better, in some ways. At Camp Rock, they were discovering their potential. Now they are actually using it, but there is also a difficult conversation waiting. If they continue working together, eventually they will have to make decisions about their individual careers. What happens if one person receives an opportunity that conflicts with the group? What happens if someone wants to pursue a completely different style? What happens if they become successful in different ways? Nobody has an easy answer. Sage finally says that they should never make friendship dependent on professional success. If someone gets a bigger opportunity, everyone should celebrate. If someone needs to step away for a while, the friendship should remain. If they eventually decide not to perform together anymore, that should not erase what they built. Everyone agrees. It is one of the most mature conversations they have ever had. They are no longer teenagers thinking only about the next performance. They are young adults beginning to understand that relationships survive through change, not through staying exactly the same. Meanwhile, the Connect 3 tour is approaching its final shows. The selected performer has become much more confident by this point. What once felt like an impossible dream now feels like part of everyday life. But the end of the tour brings another question. What happens afterward? There is interest from several people in the industry, and opportunities are beginning to appear. The performer could sign with a management team. They could release music. They could continue touring. Or they could take some time away from the spotlight and figure out what they actually want. The pressure to make the right choice becomes intense. Shane recognizes it immediately. He tells them that there is no single correct answer. Sometimes, people make decisions because they are afraid an opportunity will disappear. But if an opportunity is right for you, it should not require you to abandon yourself. That advice becomes another turning point. Instead of signing the first contract placed in front of them, the performer decides to take some time. They want to understand the business before making a permanent decision. It is not the most dramatic choice, but it is probably the smartest one. Back at home, Sage hears about the decision and supports it. She is beginning to understand the same thing in her own career. There is no need to rush. The industry will always be there. The important thing is making sure that the person entering it is ready. That evening, Sage receives another message. This one is different. It comes from someone who says they watched her performance and were inspired to start writing their own music. Sage reads the message twice. She thinks about the first time she watched performers and wondered whether she could ever stand on a stage herself. Now someone else is looking at her the same way. The thought is both exciting and humbling. She finally understands that influence is not something you chase. It happens when you create something honestly and someone else sees a part of themselves in it. That is the kind of impact she wants. Not fame for the sake of fame. Not attention for the sake of attention. Connection. The next morning, she returns to her notebook. There are still unanswered questions. There are still opportunities she has not decided whether to accept. There are still songs she has not finished. But she no longer sees those things as problems. They are possibilities. And for the first time, Sage is comfortable with the idea that she does not know exactly where the road leads. She only knows she wants to keep walking, because Camp Rock taught her how to find her voice. The stage taught her how to use it. And now life is asking her what she wants to say with it. The decision to slow things down turns out to be more difficult than Sage expected. When you are young and finally start getting noticed, everyone around you seems to believe that you have to move quickly. One opportunity leads to another, and before you have time to understand what is happening, people are already asking what you are going to do next. Sage starts realizing that the hardest part of growing as an artist is not finding opportunities. It is learning which opportunities are actually worth taking. She receives invitations to perform at different events, requests for interviews, and messages from people who want to hear more of her music. Every notification feels exciting for a few seconds, but then the same question returns. Does this help her become the artist she wants to be? She does not want to spend the next year saying yes to everything simply because she is afraid that another chance might never come. The experience at Camp Rock taught her that chasing every opportunity can make you forget why you started in the first place. So she begins choosing carefully. She accepts the performances that feel right. She turns down the ones that do not. And for the first time, she does not feel guilty about saying no. Fletch notices the change. He tells her that the old Sage would have tried to make everyone happy. She laughs and admits that he is probably right, but she also knows that the new Sage is still learning. Confidence does not mean suddenly having every answer. It means being willing to make a decision and accept that sometimes you will get it wrong. Their own music continues developing as well. After the small performance, the group starts discussing whether they should record a full project together. The idea is exciting, but it also brings back some of the concerns they talked about before. A group project sounds easy when everyone is together on stage. It becomes much more complicated when everyone has different schedules and different goals. Rosie wants the music to remain emotional and organic. Cliff is interested in experimenting with modern production. Callie wants performances to be visually exciting. Desi thinks about how the songs will connect with younger listeners. Fletch is interested in creating something that sounds polished without losing the personality they developed at Camp Rock. Sage listens to all of them. Instead of deciding immediately, she suggests they try something smaller. One song. If that works, they can decide whether to make more. Everyone agrees. That night, they begin working again. The process is not easy. They disagree about the opening. They change the chorus several times. One version sounds too similar to something they have already performed, so they throw it away. Another version has a great melody but lyrics that do not feel honest. Eventually, they discover the right direction. The new song is about change. Not the kind of change that happens overnight, but the kind that happens so slowly you do not notice until you look back and realize you are completely different. That idea connects with all of them. They have changed since the first day they met. Sage is more confident. Fletch is more open. Rosie is less afraid of performing. Cliff has discovered a passion for production. Callie has become a stronger leader, and everyone has learned that friendship requires effort. The recording session becomes one of their most enjoyable experiences. There is no pressure to create a hit. They are simply trying to capture what they sound like together now. When the final version is finished, they listen to it from beginning to end. Nobody speaks. Then Rosie quietly says that it sounds like them. That is all they needed to hear. They decide to release it without turning the launch into a massive event. No exaggerated promises. No claims that it will change music, just the song. They post it. And then they wait. At first, the response is small. A few hundred people listen. Then a few thousand. Friends share it. Fans from Camp Rock discover it. People who had never heard of the group begin finding their music through recommendations. The numbers continue climbing. But something more important happens. People start talking about the meaning behind the song. One listener says it helped them understand that growing apart from old friends does not always mean losing them. Another says the song reminded them of leaving home for the first time. Someone else says they played it after finishing school and starting a new chapter. The group reads those messages together. Sage smiles. This is exactly what she wanted. The song is no longer just theirs. It belongs to everyone who finds their own meaning inside it. Meanwhile, the Connect 3 tour is approaching its final performance. For the young performer who joined them, the end feels surprisingly emotional. They remember the first rehearsal, the first mistake, the first concert, the first time hearing thousands of people cheer. What once seemed impossible has become a collection of memories. Before the final show, Shane gathers the group backstage. He tells the young performer that the tour was never supposed to be the destination. It was supposed to be the beginning. That sentence stays with them. The final concert is bigger than the others. The energy in the venue is overwhelming. Connect 3 perform their biggest songs, and the audience sings along with almost every word. The young performer waits backstage, watching from the side. There is still nervousness, but this time, it feels familiar. They know how to handle it. When their moment arrives, they walk onto the stage. The crowd recognizes them immediately. The performance begins. There is a confidence now that was not there during the first show. The performer knows how to move. Knows how to breathe. Knows how to recover if something goes wrong. And when the song ends, they understand that the person standing on that stage is completely different from the person who first arrived at Camp Rock. The tour is ending. But the journey is not. After the final show, Connect 3 congratulate the performer. They tell them that they have grown tremendously. Then Shane asks the question everyone has been avoiding. What are you going to do now? The performer smiles. For once, they have an answer. They do not know everything yet, but they know they want to make music. They know they want to perform. And they know they want to do it on their own terms. That is enough. Back home, Sage watches a video from the final concert. She sees the performer standing confidently on the same kind of stage that once terrified them. She remembers the first day at Camp Rock. Everything seemed so important then. Who won? Who was chosen? Who was better? Now those things feel much smaller. The real achievement was becoming brave enough to keep going. Sage sends a message to the group. She tells them that she thinks they should return to Camp Rock one day. Everyone responds immediately. But this time, the idea is different. They do not want to return as contestants. They want to return as mentors. They want to meet the next generation of campers. They want to help young performers who are standing exactly where they once stood. Nervous, excited, confused, desperate to prove themselves. The thought makes Sage emotional because she realizes that the journey has come full circle. She once needed someone to tell her that her voice mattered. Now she has the opportunity to tell someone else the same thing. Fletch agrees. Rosie agrees. The others agree to. They start imagining what the next summer at Camp Rock could look like. New campers, new music, new friendships, new dreams. Maybe there will be another competition. Maybe there will not. Maybe the next story will focus on something completely different. Nobody knows. And for once, nobody feels the need to know. They have learned that the best moments often happen when you stop trying to control everything. Sage closes her notebook. The last page contains a new lyric. She reads it quietly to herself. Then she smiles. The words are not about becoming famous. They are not about winning. They are not even about Camp Rock. They are about moving forward. Because the greatest thing she learned was that every ending creates another beginning. The camp ended. The competition ended. The tour ended. But the music continues. And as the next chapter waits for them, Sage finally understands that she does not need to know exactly where the road leads. She only needs the courage to take the next step. The next step. The idea of returning to Camp Rock starts as a simple conversation, but within a few days, it becomes something much more serious. Sage and the others begin discussing what it would actually mean to go back. They are no longer the campers who arrived years earlier with something to prove. If they return, they will be walking through those gates as performers who have already experienced the pressure of the industry. That thought makes Sage nervous in a completely different way. She remembers how important camp rock once seemed to her. Every rehearsal felt like a test. Every performance felt like it could decide her future. She remembers looking at the older performers and wondering how they seemed so confident. Now she realizes that many of them were probably just as scared as she was. That understanding changes the way she looks at the idea of becoming a mentor. She does not want to stand in front of younger campers and pretend she has everything figured out. She wants to be honest with them. She wants to tell them that confidence does not appear overnight, that rejection hurts, that mistakes happen, that sometimes your closest friend will get an opportunity you wanted, and that none of those things mean you should stop believing in yourself. Fletch agrees with her. He says that if they return, they should not simply teach campers how to perform. They should help them understand what happens after the applause disappears. That becomes the foundation for their plan. Meanwhile, the young performer who completed the Connect 3 tour is starting a new chapter. The tour gave them experience, but now they have to make their own decisions without Shane standing nearby every night. The first few weeks are surprisingly difficult. Without a tour schedule, there is suddenly a lot of empty time. There are meetings with producers. There are conversations about possible projects. There are people offering advice from completely different directions. One person tells them to release music immediately while their name is still familiar. Another suggests waiting and developing a stronger identity. Someone else believes they should focus entirely on social media. The performer becomes overwhelmed. They thought the hardest part was getting the opportunity. Now they understand that choosing what to do with the opportunity can be even harder. Instead of making a rushed decision, they go back to the place where everything started. Camp Rock. They do not announce the visit. They simply want to walk around the grounds and remember what it felt like before everything changed. When they arrive, the camp is preparing for another season. New campers are beginning to arrive. Some are carrying instruments. Some are practicing lyrics. Others are pretending not to be nervous. The performer watches them from a distance and suddenly recognizes the same expressions they once saw in themselves. Excitement, fear, hope, the desire to belong. One young camper is standing away from everyone else, quietly holding a guitar. They clearly want to join the group but are too nervous to approach. The performer walks over and starts a conversation. At first, the camper barely responds. Then they mention that they are afraid their voice is not good enough. The performer smiles, because they remember thinking exactly the same thing. Instead of giving a motivational speech, they ask the camper to play something. The camper hesitates. Then begins. The performance is not perfect. There are missed notes, a few moments of hesitation, but there is something genuine in it. When the song ends, the performer simply says that the voice is worth hearing. The camper looks surprised. That small moment reminds the performer why camp rock mattered in the first place. It was never about creating perfect singers. It was about creating a place where young people could take a chance. Sage and the others eventually arrive at Camp 2. Their reunion feels emotional, but they do not make a huge announcement. They simply walk through the familiar paths together. Every corner brings back a memory, a rehearsal room. An old performance area, the place where they once argued. The spot where they stayed up talking about their dreams. They laugh about how serious everything seemed back then, but there is also something bittersweet about seeing the camp filled with a new generation. Everything looks familiar, yet everything has changed. Sage realizes that this is exactly what growing up feels like. The places remain, the memories remain, but you are not the same person anymore. The group is eventually asked to speak with the new campers. At first, they are unsure what to say. Then one camper asks the question everyone expected. How do you know if you are good enough? The room becomes quiet. Sage looks at the others. Then she answers honestly, you probably won't. The campers look confused. Sage continues. There will always be someone better at something. There will always be someone who gets the opportunity you wanted. There will always be days when you hear your own performance and think you could have done more. But being good enough cannot depend on always being the best. If you love what you are doing, you have to keep learning. You have to keep practicing. And most importantly, you have to keep performing even when you are afraid. The campers listen carefully. Fletch adds that talent can open a door, but attitude determines whether you are ready for what is behind it. That line stays with several of the campers. The visit eventually turns into something bigger. The group is invited to help with one of the camp's major performances. Instead of taking over, they decide to let the new campers lead. They help with rehearsals, They offer suggestions, they correct mistakes, but they never try to make the performance about themselves. That is important to Sage. She remembers how frustrating it was when adults talked to the campers without actually listening to them. So she listens. One camper wants to change the arrangement. Another wants to perform a completely different style of music. Someone else wants to write an original song instead of performing a familiar one. The group encourages them. The result is messy at first. There are disagreements. Some campers become frustrated. Others lose confidence. But slowly, the performance starts coming together. And Sage sees something familiar happening. The same transformation she experienced is happening again. The campers are becoming a group. People who arrived as strangers are starting to trust one another. The night of the performance arrives. The stage is filled with young performers who are nervous but excited. Sage watches from the side. For a moment, she feels like she is watching her younger self. The first song begins. One camper makes a mistake. They freeze for a second. Then another camper continues singing. The audience responds positively. The nervous performer recovers and keeps going. Sage smiles. That moment is more important than a perfect performance could ever be. Because the camper just learned something they will remember for years. A mistake does not have to end the song. The performance continues. By the final number, the entire group is performing together. The audience applauds. The campers look toward each other with relief and excitement. They did it. Afterward, Sage speaks with the camper who had been afraid to sing earlier. The camper tells her that they almost quit before the performance. Sage asks what changed their mind. The answer is simple. They told me to keep going. Sage realizes that the words are exactly what she once needed to hear. Now she has passed them forward. Later that evening, the old group sits together outside the camp. Nobody says much at first. They simply listen to the sounds around them. Music coming from the rehearsal building. Campers laughing. Someone practicing an instrument in the distance. It feels peaceful. Fletch looks at Sage and says that maybe this is what they were supposed to do all along. Not simply become successful performers. Help other people find their own voices. Sage agrees. But she also knows that their own dreams are still waiting. She wants to record more music. Fletch wants to continue producing. Rosie wants to perform. Callie wants to develop her choreography. The others have their own ambitions. Being mentors does not mean giving up their careers. It means carrying what they learned into everything they do. Before they leave, Sage walks back toward the stage one final time. The lights are off, the seats are empty, but she can still imagine the crowd. She remembers the first time she stood there. She remembers how badly she wanted to be chosen. Now she realizes something. She was waiting for someone else to tell her that she belonged on the stage. She does not need that anymore. She knows. And perhaps that is the real legacy of Camp Rock. Not the trophies. Not the performances. Not the fame. It is the confidence passed from one person to another. One generation teaches the next. One performer inspires another. One nervous camper takes a chance. And somewhere, eventually, that camper may become the person standing on the other side of the stage telling someone else not to give up. As Sage walks away from the stage, Fletch calls her name. She turns around. He asks if she is ready to leave. Sage looks back at Camp Rock one last time. Then she smiles. She is ready. Because this time, leaving does not feel like saying goodbye. It feels like carrying the music with her. And whatever comes next, she knows she will face it differently. Not because she is certain about the future, but because she finally understands that uncertainty is not something to fear. Sometimes, it is simply another name for possibility. The next morning, Camp Rock feels different to Sage, not because the camp has changed, but because she has. When she first arrived, every part of the camp seemed like a test. The rehearsal rooms were places where she had to prove herself. The stage was something she wanted to conquer. Even the friendships she made were initially connected to the competition, because everyone was trying to figure out who they could trust. Now she walks through the same camp without feeling the need to prove anything. That realization stays with her as she prepares to leave. Fletch is already outside with the others, and they are talking about their plans for the next few months. Everyone has something coming up, some performances are scheduled, some new music is being developed, and there are conversations about projects that could take them in completely different directions. For a few minutes, everything sounds exciting. Then Rosie asks the question nobody wants to answer. What happens if we all get too busy? The conversation suddenly becomes quieter. It is a realistic concern. They have promised to stay connected. Before, But life outside Camp Rock is becoming more complicated. Their careers are starting to develop, and each opportunity could pull them toward a different city, a different schedule, or even a completely different direction. Sage does not pretend that it will be easy. She tells them that they cannot promise to always be together. They cannot promise to talk every day. They cannot promise that nothing between them will ever change. But they can promise something else. They can promise that if one of them needs help, the others will answer. That is enough. Everyone agrees. The conversation ends with a group hug, followed by the kind of jokes that usually happen when people are trying not to get emotional. But beneath the laughter, everyone understands what Sage really means. Friendship is not measured by how often you are together. It is measured by whether the connection survives when life pulls you apart. After leaving Camp Rock, Sage returns home with a completely different mindset. She no longer feels like she has to figure out her entire future immediately. Instead, she creates a simple plan. She wants to write, she wants to perform, she wants to keep learning, and she wants to make sure that whatever music she releases actually represents who she is. That last part becomes more difficult than she expects. A professional producer contacts her after hearing her recent performances. The offer sounds exciting, but during the first meeting, Sage realizes that the producer has a very specific idea of what she should sound like. The producer compliments her voice but says she needs something more commercial. Something easier to market. Something that sounds like the current trends. Sage listens carefully. She understands that the advice is not necessarily malicious. The producer genuinely believes they know what will work, but Sage also knows that following every trend could make her music lose the personality that made people connect with it in the first place. She asks whether she would be allowed to keep some creative control. The answer is complicated. The producer says they can discuss it later. That response tells Sage everything she needs to know. She politely turns down the offer. It is not an easy decision. For a few hours, she wonders if she just made the biggest mistake of her life. Then Fletch calls. She tells him what happened. He asks whether she regrets saying no. Sage thinks about it. No, she finally says. And that answer feels powerful, because she knows she made the decision herself. Nobody chose for her. Nobody told her whether she was good enough. She simply trusted her instincts. That is a completely different kind of confidence. Meanwhile, Fletch is working on his own material. He has started experimenting with production, and his sound is becoming more distinctive. He sends Sage a new track, expecting her to give him honest feedback. She listens carefully. Then she tells him something is missing. He asks what. She says, "The track sounds technically good, but it does not sound like him." Fletch laughs. He realizes that he has been making the same mistake he warned Sage about. He has been trying to make something that sounds successful instead of something that feels authentic. They start over. This time, they stop worrying about what the music industry might expect. They create something that reflects the energy they discovered together at Camp Rock. It is not perfect. It is not designed for a specific trend, but it feels alive. That is enough. The two of them begin realizing that they work surprisingly well together. Not because they always agree, they definitely do not, but because they challenge each other. Sage pushes Fletch to be more emotional with his music. Fletch pushes Sage to take more risks. Neither lets the other settle for something that feels safe. Their friendship becomes stronger because of it. At the same time, the young performer who toured with Connect 3 finally makes a decision about the future. Instead of immediately signing a major deal, they decide to release one independent song first. The decision surprises several people in the industry. Some think it is too cautious. Others believe it is a smart way to understand what kind of artist they want to become. The performer does not care anymore. They have learned that a career should not be built around other people's expectations. The first independent release is small. There is no huge marketing campaign. There is no guarantee that it will become successful. But when the song finally appears online, something unexpected happens. The response is personal. People talk about the lyrics. They talk about the story. They talk about the journey from Camp Rock to the professional stage. And slowly, the song begins reaching more listeners. Not overnight. Not magically. But naturally. That is exactly the kind of growth the performer wanted. Back at Camp Rock, the new campers are also beginning to settle into their routines. The summer has started again. New personalities are appearing. New friendships are forming. And, just like before, there are already disagreements. One group of campers wants to dominate the main performance. Another group believes everyone should have an equal role. A few campers begin feeling left out. The camp staff notices the tension, but instead of immediately solving the problem, they allow the campers to work through it. This time, Sage is invited to return for a short mentoring session. When she arrives, she immediately recognizes what is happening. The campers are repeating some of the same mistakes she once made. They are competing instead of collaborating. She does not lecture them. Instead, she asks them to perform the song they have been arguing about. They perform it separately. Then Sage asks them to perform it together. The difference is obvious. The first version has impressive individual moments, but it feels disconnected. The second version is less technically perfect, yet somehow more powerful. Sage asks the campers which performance they enjoyed more. They all choose the second one. Then she asks why. One camper says, "Because nobody was trying to beat everyone else." Sage smiles. That is the answer. She tells them that talent is not only about how loudly you can make people notice you. Sometimes talent is knowing when to make space for someone else. The campers begin changing the performance. They give each person a moment. They create harmonies. They adjust the arrangement. The song starts sounding like a group rather than a collection of individual performances. Watching them work gives Sage a strange feeling. She remembers being exactly where they are, but now she is on the other side. She is the person giving advice, the person watching someone else discover their confidence, and she realizes that this may be one of the most rewarding parts of her entire journey. Later that evening, she receives a message from Fletch. He has finished the new track. He wants her to hear it. Sage puts on her headphones. The song begins. For the first time, she hears Fletch's personality clearly in the music. There is confidence, but there is also vulnerability. It sounds like someone who has stopped trying to impress everybody. When the song ends, Sage sends him a simple message. Now it sounds like you. Fletch replies almost immediately. Finally, Sage laughs. Then another message arrives. It is from Rosie. Then Callie. Then Desi. Everyone is talking about the possibility of recording together again. This time, the idea feels less like a reunion and more like the beginning of a real creative partnership. They know it will not be easy. They will disagree. They will have different schedules. They will probably make songs they hate, but they also know something they did not know before. They know how to work through those problems. They know how to listen. They know how to give each other space. And most importantly, they know that the friendship comes first. The group schedules their first serious recording session. Nobody knows exactly what they are going to create. There is no script for this part. No competition. No judge. No guaranteed result. Just a room, a few instruments, a microphone, and a group of friends who have spent an entire summer learning what music can mean. Sage walks into the studio and looks around. For a moment, she remembers the first stage at Camp Rock. Then she smiles. That girl wanted someone else to give her a chance. This version of Sage has stopped waiting. She picks up the microphone. The music begins. And this time, there is no question about whether she belongs there. She knows she does. She knows she does.